I remember the moment the rain started to fall again, its rhythmic patter against the roof of my small office a haunting reminder of days gone by. The scent of damp paper and dust filled the air as I sat at my cluttered desk, tracing the faded lines of my father's old police reports. The ink bled slightly at the edges, much like my own thoughts, which often wandered to the weight of his legacy pressing down on me. My fingers trembled as I turned each page, memories flooding back like water through a cracked dam. My heart tightened as I recalled Jack O'Connell, a man forged in the fires of war, whose sharp green eyes could cut through any lie. He taught me many lessons in life and in justice, but one phrase echoed louder than others: "Michael, the worst kind of evil often hides in plain sight." I could almost hear his voice, rough yet gentle, guiding me through the fog that seemed to shroud our world. The memory of him holding court over a case always played out in my mind like an old reel-to-reel film, steadfast determination warring with moments of despair. The musty air hung heavy around me as I flipped through a particularly worn report about Ethan Powers and his missing daughter, Sarah. I could almost smell the stale coffee and cigarette smoke wafting from the Arkham County precinct where he had received that first chilling letter. It was there that my father first recognized darkness lurking beneath mundane facades. I couldn't help but admire him for his unyielding resolve. He saw shadows where others turned away. At that moment, I felt a chill creep up my spine when I recalled how Mr. Sterling had tried to brush off Ethan's plea for help. "No way, O'Connell," he had scoffed, "this ain't worth our time." That dismissive attitude had only fueled my father's quiet fury, a fire that burned deep within him and ignited my own sense of justice. It was a lesson learned too early: complacency can be just as deadly as crime itself. As I sifted through more reports, I couldn't shake off the feeling that history had a way of repeating itself. The rain drummed persistently on the windowpanes outside while I contemplated the case before me, the young backpacker found lifeless in the woods, and how it echoed Ethan's story from years ago. Had we truly learned nothing? Was there another father out there waiting for answers just like Ethan had? I stood up abruptly, pushing my chair back with a screech that made me wince. My heart raced as adrenaline surged through me. It was time to step out into that rain-soaked world beyond these walls. With purpose, I grabbed my coat and hat from a nearby hook before heading toward the door. Each step felt heavier than the last as memories tangled with present fears, a combination that urged me forward. Outside, droplets cascaded down like tears from a grieving sky. I welcomed them against my face, finding solace in their coolness as they mingled with thoughts of Lily, her laughter now echoing in distant corners of my mind. She deserved better than this cold reality. She deserved safety and warmth rather than shadows lurking in every crevice. The streets were slick underfoot as I navigated through town toward Ethan's old address on Maple Avenue, an unassuming house now overgrown with weeds and neglect. As I approached its weathered steps, emotions surged within me. This place held secrets lost to time but not forgotten by those who cared enough to remember. With tentative steps, I climbed onto the porch and rapped lightly on the door. A moment passed, my heart thudded against my ribcage, before it creaked open to reveal an elderly woman whose eyes mirrored both sorrow and strength. "Can I help you?" she asked cautiously, her voice quavering slightly. "I'm Detective O'Hara," I replied gently but firmly. "I'm investigating Sarah Powers' disappearance." Her gaze sharpened, recognition flickered across her features like lightning illuminating dark clouds overhead. "You're here about her? After all this time?" "I am," I assured her, trying to mask how those words twisted inside me like a knife because they brought forth unresolved pain, the kind I'd known since childhood when life felt far simpler yet was anything but innocent. The woman's lips pressed together tightly before she spoke again. "You should know, not all ghosts rest easy." Her warning sent shivers down my spine as unease settled in alongside empathy. "What do you mean?" My voice barely escaped between clenched teeth. "There are whispers," she said quietly, leaning closer so only I could hear her words over raindrops pounding against rooftops nearby. "Rumors about what really happened to Sarah. Things left unsaid." My mind raced with possibilities as tension crackled between us like static electricity in anticipation of a storm's arrival, an indication that something monumental was brewing beneath layers long buried by time and silence. "I need you to tell me everything," I urged her desperately, because if there was even a fraction of truth hidden within those shadows lurking around us, then perhaps hope existed for both Sarah's family and mine after all these years. She hesitated for what felt like eternity before nodding slowly, a flicker of determination sparking behind her dulled eyes as she stepped aside to let me into her home where memories clung thickly in musty air fraught with regret. As soon as I crossed over threshold into darkness lit only by fading sunlight filtering through grimy windows, my pulse quickened again. I sensed we were standing at the precipice between past horrors and current realities woven together into one intricate tapestry threaded by fate itself. And just maybe, today would bring revelations long overdue, truths buried under layers upon layers waiting patiently for someone brave enough to pull them back into light once more. I remember the scent of grease and coffee as I stepped into the daily grind, a local diner where the clatter of plates filled the air with a familiar symphony. This place had been my father's second office, a hub where he often met those who had something to say about the cases that haunted him. The buzz of conversation faded as I approached the counter, and I could feel the weight of the world pressing on my shoulders like an unwelcome coat. I took a seat at a booth near the window, glancing around at the worn linoleum floors and faded photographs on the walls. My heart raced when I recalled my father sitting here, poring over case files with that intense focus only he could muster. He saw patterns where others only perceived isolated tragedies. His mind was a labyrinth of connections that seemed to spark with every new detail. I felt drawn to that energy, desperate to unlock it for myself. As I sipped on my black coffee, I glanced down at the file spread across my table, a compilation of reports about Sarah Powers and Sofia Bianchi. A chill crawled down my spine as I absorbed their eerie similarities. Both girls had disappeared near old telephone poles, both last seen in close proximity to that same beat-up green 1963 Chevy pickup truck. The weight of their stories pressed against me like an iron ball. I remembered how my father had visited Ethan Powers after his daughter vanished. There was an undeniable tension in the air during that meeting. Ethan was hardened by grief and burdened by local prejudice against him. My father leaned forward, his voice steady yet urgent. "I need every detail, no matter how small, to bring her home, Ethan, for real." It wasn't just words, it was a promise wrapped in desperation. My hands trembled slightly as I recalled how he'd asked questions over greasy plates piled high with food, unaware of Andy Hopkins lurking in the background like a shadow. The diner's ambience shifted with every exchanged glance between them. Andy's eyes were glued to my father while he tried to pry information from Ethan's lips. Unbeknownst to him, this seemingly mundane moment held secrets waiting to surface. "I know you're hurting," my father continued gently but firmly, "but we have to find out everything we can." His sincerity resonated deeply within me. It was his approach that drew people out of their shells, an understanding that cut through layers of fear and shame. At that moment, I felt something shift inside me, a growing urgency that mirrored what my father must have experienced all those years ago. The details screamed at me now more than ever. Unspoken fears hidden behind innocent facades and hints buried under layers of everyday life. The realization struck hard: these weren't just names in police reports, they were lives intertwined by fate. The clatter in the diner started to fade again as I became lost in thought about Sofia's brother Tony Bianchi. My father's frustration after speaking with him echoed in my mind. Michael, it's like these details are screaming at me, but nobody else hears it, not even the people I'm trying to help. Those words ignited a fire within me, a desire to be better than complacent silence. In an effort to breathe life into those stories once more, I rose from the booth and made my way toward Ethan Power's house, a small dwelling burdened by sorrow yet still holding echoes of laughter from before his world crumbled into chaos. As I walked outside, rain started falling again, a steady drumming against asphalt that matched my racing heartbeat. Arriving at Ethan's door felt surreal. Would he welcome me? Would he trust me enough? My heart pounded in my chest as I raised my hand and knocked gently. Each echo sent vibrations through me as if asking whether he would open up about Sarah's disappearance or if this would be another attempt at breaking through a wall fortified by grief. After what felt like an eternity, the door creaked open slowly. Ethan stood there, hunched shoulders beneath an oversized flannel shirt, and sadness etched across his face like lines drawn by sorrowful hands. "Detective," he murmured softly before stepping aside and letting me into his dimly lit living room. The atmosphere inside was thick with memories. Photos lined shelves cluttered with dust-covered knickknacks reflected fleeting moments captured in time, moments now tinged with loss. My throat tightened when I noticed one particular picture, Sarah laughing brightly beside her younger brother while an ice cream cone dripped down her hand. "Ethan," I started carefully, feeling vulnerability wash over me as empathy surged within. "I want to understand what happened." His eyes darkened momentarily before flickering back up towards mine, raw emotion swirling beneath layers of pain, as if weighing how much truth he could bear revealing today. "You really want to know?" His voice trembled slightly. "Yes," I replied firmly but gently, sensing this moment could be pivotal in unraveling not only Sarah's story but perhaps also Sophia's too, a chance for clarity amid foggy uncertainties lingering all around us. As we sat down together amidst shadows cast by memories long past and futures uncertain ahead, questions unspooled between us like threads from an unraveling tapestry, the tension thickened palpably within each breath shared between two fathers lost among echoes of their daughter's laughter now fading further away from grasp. The urgency of the voice on the other end cut through the din of clattering plates and muted conversations like a knife. A tip-off about a truck matching the description had surfaced, abandoned down a dark, forgotten lane just outside Arkham Forest. My heart raced as I imagined him, determination etched into every line of his face, grabbing his keys with fervor. I could envision him turning that old patrol car onto the winding road, tires crunching over gravel, mist swirling around the evergreens like a ghostly shroud. My pulse quickened at the thought. He was heading into danger without hesitation. The weight of every unsolved case hung heavily in my chest, each unanswered question driving him forward. As he navigated through the fog, I felt an inexplicable connection to his plight. It was as if we were tethered by an invisible thread strung tight with shared purpose. Then came that moment when he spotted it, the battered green pickup truck half hidden in a ditch behind a cluster of pines. A stunned, "No way," escaped his lips, reverberating in my mind like an alarm bell warning of impending chaos. I could picture him, eyes wide with disbelief and adrenaline coursing through his veins. He always said that when you're dealing with someone this twisted, you can't hesitate, action is your only ally against evil. Before I knew it, I could almost hear the splintering wood as my father kicked open Andy Hopkins' door, a fierce testament to his resolve and unwavering commitment to justice. My heart thudded in rhythm with those shattering moments. I felt my breath catch, the grunts of effort echoed in my ears as they wrestled for control. It was more than just a physical fight, it was an embodiment of their battle against despair itself. In that instant, I understood how much was at stake, not just for them but for every family aching for answers and closure. I felt something shift inside me then, a surge of determination igniting a fire in my gut. Suddenly it wasn't just about memories or legacies, it was about making sure no one else had to suffer through unanswered questions or lingering doubts. My hands clenched into fists as I imagined being there alongside him, fighting not just for justice but for those who had been silenced too long. But then reality crashed back in like a wave breaking against rocky shores. I couldn't be there physically. A gnawing fear settled deep within me. What if he needed me? What if this time he faced something too dark even for him? I shook off those thoughts as quickly as they came. This wasn't about me. It was about saving lives from being snuffed out by evil's insatiable hunger. Just then, another voice broke through my musings, the unmistakable sound of sirens approaching fast in the distance, a cacophony signaling backup on its way to help him take down Andy once and for all. Relief washed over me momentarily until dread crept back in at the thought of what could happen before they arrived. Suddenly everything intensified, my senses sharpened as adrenaline coursed through me again. I could see flashes of blue lights reflecting off trees beyond where my father grappled fiercely with Andy inside that dilapidated house. The confrontation held so much potential danger that each second felt like an eternity stretching thin across time itself. At last, when backup arrived, chaos erupted outside as officers rushed past me toward their destination. The scene unfolding within would no longer remain shrouded in shadows for long. My heart raced while anticipation mounted within me. This wasn't just another case, it was personal now, and nothing would quell its fire until justice prevailed. As they stormed inside without hesitation or fear holding them back, I stood at a distance, watching helplessly but knowing something vital had shifted deep within me during this tumultuous moment, a realization dawning clear amidst confusion. Every choice made today echoed loudly into tomorrow's uncertain landscape. In those fleeting seconds before resolution came crashing down upon us all, clarity struck hard. This fight wasn't solely defined by bloodshed or conflict. It stemmed from love and loss interwoven into our lives like threads stitching together fragmented realities begging to be whole again. And so it began, my father's relentless pursuit intertwining seamlessly with fate's unyielding grip on justice itself, as echoes from years past reverberated across present circumstances demanding resolution above all else. I remember the moment that fragile peace shattered, an ominous crack in the calm after Andy Hopkins's conviction. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch across my thoughts. I found myself alone in the living room, the weight of history pressing on my chest like a heavy blanket. My father's voice echoed in my mind, filled with grim satisfaction as he recounted the verdict. Justice, however fleeting, had been served. But I now understood that this peace was merely an illusion, one I had clung to far too desperately. The air hung heavy with unspoken dread as I reflected on my father's relentless fight in court to ensure justice for Sarah and Sophia. He had battled against a bureaucratic tide, pouring every ounce of himself into those proceedings. Yet even then, I could see how the federal government's decision to abolish the death penalty haunted him, shadowing his victories with an unsettling gloom. A flicker of anger danced behind his eyes at times when he spoke of it, a reminder that sometimes justice was not only elusive but also arbitrary. At that moment, as I leaned against the wall trying to gather my thoughts, the phone rang shrill and abrupt. The night felt still around me, amplifying every sound until that call felt like a gunshot shattering glass. I rushed to answer it, heart hammering wildly as Mr. Sterling's voice came through, tinged with disbelief and urgency. "No way, O'Connell," he said, his words tumbling out in a rush. "Hopkins just vanished. Slipped right out during a good behavior outing to Forest Park." A cold dread clamped around my chest like a vice grip, squeezing tighter with every syllable he uttered. I could hardly breathe as images of Andy flitted through my mind, his crazed eyes filled with malevolent glee at having reclaimed his freedom. Knowing he was out there again, unleashed and possibly seeking revenge against my father and our family, sent chills racing down my spine. It was as if I were standing on a precipice overlooking an abyss. One wrong step would send me spiraling into darkness. I felt an urgency pulse through me as I paced our living room, mirroring my father's silent fury from years past. My hands clenched into fists at my sides while he muttered under his breath like thunder rumbling before a storm, "Where are you, you creepy monster? I'll find you." Each word dripped with an intensity that ignited something within me, a fervent desire to stand by him again and confront whatever nightmare awaited us both. Driven by that primal need for action, I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair and slipped it on hastily. The fabric felt foreign against my skin. It had been so long since I had ventured out into danger willingly. As I stepped outside into the cool night air, a gust sent shivers racing down my spine like icy fingers dancing across bare skin. The streets were eerily quiet, even the rain seemed hesitant to fall again after its earlier barrage. Every rustle of leaves echoed through the silence, a reminder that predators lurked not just in dark corners but within twisted minds as well. My pulse quickened as I walked toward Forest Park. It was where Andy had last been seen during his so-called outings. With every step deeper into that dense woodland, tension coiled tighter within me like a spring ready to snap at any moment. Shadows stretched and twisted among the trees overhead while moonlight filtered through leaves above in ghostly patterns, illuminating paths but casting dark corners where danger could hide unseen. As I approached an old wooden bench nestled between towering pines, the very spot where families often gathered, I recalled moments from childhood spent exploring these woods with Lily. A pang of longing hit hard. Her laughter once rang out here like music carried on gentle winds instead of whispers filled with dread. Determined not to let nostalgia drown me further in despair, I scanned my surroundings carefully for any signs of movement or disturbance. A broken branch here or stray footprint there could hold vital clues about Andy's whereabouts. Suddenly something caught my eye. A flash of movement near a thicket less than 30 feet away made me freeze mid-step. Instincts kicked in as adrenaline surged through every vein in my body like fire coursing hot blood through ice-cold veins. "Who's there?" My voice trembled yet resonated louder than expected amidst lingering silence enveloping us both. The unknown figure remained hidden among shadows clinging tightly around them like dark secrets refusing exposure under light. Silence answered back for what felt eternal until finally breaking free from its grasp came a low chuckle, a sound dripping with malice that reverberated deep within me. "Detective O'Hara. Didn't expect you would come looking for me so soon." My heart raced wildly. Recognition crashed over me like waves battering against cliffs. I knew that voice all too well. It belonged to none other than Andy himself, a specter returning from hell armed with nothing but chaos and revenge fueling him forward. "Stay back!" I shouted desperately while adrenaline coursed through me. I scanned for anything resembling protection but found nothing except looming trees waiting idly nearby at odds against our confrontation. With every ounce of resolve surging within me now pulsating alongside fear, that fear pushed me forward closer toward him, a desperate drive overpowering caution. I remember the nights that stretched into dawn, each hour marked by the relentless ticking of a clock that seemed to mock my father's obsession. The world outside blurred into a watercolor of muted colors, and as I sat in the quiet of our living room, I could feel the weight of silence pressing down on me. Shadows danced along the walls, flickering under the dim light as I sifted through my father's old case notes scattered across the coffee table. Each page was a testament to his relentless pursuit, filled with sketches of victims found in the misty forests surrounding Arkham. I shivered as I traced the crude outlines with my fingers. They looked hauntingly similar to Andy's methods. The connection sent a chill racing through my veins. My heart thudded heavily, echoing my growing dread. I felt my heart ache for him, torn between admiration for his dedication and sorrow for the distance it had created between us. Days turned into months, and each lead he followed seemed to pull him deeper into a void from which he might never return. My mother, Emily, floated through our lives like a ghost seeking solace. She tried to reach out to him, her voice often tinged with worry. "Jack, you're going to break yourself if you don't take a break," she pleaded more times than I could count. But he would shake his head, eyes glazed with determination that bordered on madness. I knew he was locked into a moral debt that would drive him until he collapsed. As I rifled through another stack of notes, an uneasy feeling settled in my gut. The dark circles under his eyes had deepened significantly over time. Once vibrant green orbs now appeared hollowed and haunted. My breath caught as I recalled how he used to sit at this very table with such passion for justice flickering in his gaze, a fire now extinguished by sheer exhaustion and sleepless nights fueled by endless cups of coffee. The scent of burnt grounds lingered in the air like a ghost of what had once been. At that moment, I heard a rustle outside. The sound jolted me from my thoughts like an electric shock. I rushed to the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to peer out at the rain-soaked street below. A figure moved past under a flickering streetlight. Their silhouette looked familiar but indistinct in the heavy downpour. My pulse quickened as memories washed over me, late-night conversations with my father about justice and morality, laughter shared over mundane dinners now suffocated beneath layers of unresolved pain. I stepped away from the window and returned to my father's notes with renewed urgency, desperate to uncover something, anything, that could offer clarity amid this chaos. My fingers stumbled upon an old photograph tucked between pages, a blurred image of Andy taken during one of his court hearings years ago. A sense of unease crept over me as I turned it over. Scribbled on the back were fragments of thoughts my father had jotted down. "He's still out there." A simple line that sent tremors through me. I remembered the late-night calls where hope would ignite in his voice only to fizzle into despair when new evidence proved fruitless or led nowhere at all. The pursuit had become both his prison and lifeline. Each unsolved case gnawed at him relentlessly like a ravenous beast hungry for resolution. My mother's voice echoed again in my mind as if she were standing beside me now. "You can't chase shadows forever." But how could he stop? How could any part of him let go when there was still so much darkness left unchallenged? It was then that realization hit me like a punch. I was losing both parents to this nightmare. Determined not to let this spiral out of control any further, I decided to confront him directly. That night, after gathering every ounce of courage within me, I knocked on his office door, the small room cluttered with mounds of papers and coffee cups that told stories far too familiar yet painfully distant. "Dad?" My voice wavered slightly as it broke through the silence. "Come in," he called back without missing a beat. As soon as I stepped inside, anxiety coiled tightly around me like an iron band squeezing ever tighter. The sight before me shattered any lingering hope. He sat hunched over his desk, a shell of himself lost amidst pages filled with frantic scrawls and obsessive notes about Andy's movements. "What are you doing?" My voice came out sharper than intended. Surprise flickered across his features before resignation settled back in. "I'm close," he murmured without looking up from his work, a statement that reverberated against every wall in that cramped space. "Close?" I repeated incredulously while stepping further into the room until I stood beside him. Desperation clawed at my insides as clarity surged within me. A profound regret began to fester about our fractured relationship and what it meant for both our lives moving forward. "Dad," I said softly this time, "you need to take care of yourself first." He finally met my gaze, those tired eyes searching mine for understanding. But all they revealed was weariness worn thin by countless battles fought alone against invisible foes lurking just beyond reach. "You don't understand," he replied firmly but quietly, as if fearing betrayal would slip away unnoticed if spoken too loudly. "I do understand." My frustration bubbled over. Emotion surged through every fiber within me, an outpouring fueled by years spent watching someone I loved dissolve under pressure too immense for any single soul to bear alone. Suddenly realizing how futile it seemed trying to convince him otherwise unleashed something deep inside, a revelation about our intertwining destinies shaped irrevocably by loss rather than resolution, and perhaps therein lay true strength, facing shadows together instead. "I know you want justice," I continued slowly while taking a step closer until our breaths intertwined in tension-filled air thickening around us like fog creeping silently across darkened woods outside, that ominous presence reminding us both why we fought every day against unseen evils lurking always just beyond grasp, but we can't let it consume us. Tension hung heavy between us. I saw hesitation flash across his face before finally crumbling into acceptance, gradually replacing stubborn resolve etched deep within those weary lines etched upon aging skin weathered far too long beneath burdening storms suffered alone. And so there we stood, father and son caught amid swirling tides threatening everything we cherished most dearly. I remember the moment everything shattered, like glass breaking underfoot. The air was thick with tension when I heard the door slam against the wall. My heart raced as I whipped around, the sound echoing in my mind, warning me of an impending threat. The shadows cast by the flickering lights danced ominously across the walls of our living room, painting a scene that felt all too familiar and yet horrifically new. "Show yourself, you coward. This ends now." My father's voice pierced through the silence, laced with a blend of defiance and desperation. He stood there, knife clutched tightly in his hand, eyes darting around the room like a hawk searching for prey. I could see every muscle in his body tense. He was ready for a fight. My breath caught in my throat as realization dawned. This was no longer just about justice, it had turned into a battle for survival. Suddenly, I saw him. Andy Hopkins burst through the doorway like a dark storm cloud shrouded in rage and madness. I felt my blood run cold as he tackled my father to the floor, their bodies colliding with sickening force. A desperate struggle erupted in front of me, a dance of chaos where love fought against pure hatred. The thud echoed through my mind, resonating with the primal fear clawing at my insides. "Dad!" I screamed instinctively, but my voice felt swallowed by the darkness closing in around us. I stepped forward, adrenaline coursing through my veins like fire igniting fuel wood. Every instinct screamed to intervene, to save him from this nightmare unfolding right before my eyes. But then came Emily's terrified shriek, slicing through my thoughts like a knife. My mother's face contorted in horror as she witnessed her husband grapple with a monster born from the depths of despair, a horror that would haunt our family forever. I wanted to rush to her side and shield her from this nightmare but felt rooted to the spot instead, paralyzed by fear and disbelief. Just when it seemed hopeless, the door swung open again with a force that sent tremors through me. Ethan Powers and Mario Bianchi burst inside like knights charging into battle, shotgun and butcher's knife gleaming menacingly under the dim light. Their arrival ignited a spark of desperate hope within me. They were not just here as friends but as brothers bound by grief and shared purpose. "Get off him!" Ethan shouted as he leveled his shotgun at Andy. My heart leapt at his presence, a guardian angel descending amidst chaos just when we needed him most. Mario lunged forward without hesitation, aiming for Andy's back with precision honed through pain and loss. "This is for Sophia," he roared, determination radiating from him like heat from a fire on a winter's night. In that moment of chaos, the room swirling with shouts and frantic movements, I felt every ounce of fear transform into something else, resolve. I had to act. Standing idly by was no longer an option. I rushed towards my father and Andy, adrenaline fueling every step. As I neared them, I saw how Andy's hands were wrapped around my father's throat, every second stretched painfully long before Mario managed to land a blow that sent Andy staggering backward into the coffee table. "Now!" Ethan yelled at me while focusing on keeping Andy at bay with his weapon aimed directly at him. I nodded instinctively, every fiber of my being pushed me forward as I grabbed hold of my father's arm, yanking him free from Andy's grip with all my might. "We need to get out." My voice rang out clear amid the chaos. My father gasped for breath while glancing between me and Ethan, the disbelief evident in those tired eyes filled with both gratitude and worry. As we moved towards the door together, I could still hear Andy's enraged cries behind us, filled with fury over losing control over everything he had terrorized for so long. "You can't escape me. You're mine." A surge of terror coursed through me. I knew this was far from over, we were not safe yet, but there was something exhilarating about facing this darkness together alongside those who understood our pain. We stumbled out into the rain-soaked night, the cold droplets mingling with sweat on our brows as we ran toward freedom beyond those walls that had once seemed impenetrable yet now felt like prison bars breaking apart under pressure. Ethan kept pace beside us while Mario lagged behind slightly but remained vigilant. Each footfall echoed against pavement slicked by rain as shadows danced around us, reminders of danger lurking just out of reach but always near enough to sense its looming presence. I glanced back briefly. Andy appeared silhouetted against flickering lights inside our home, a specter refusing to fade away easily even if driven back momentarily by sheer numbers alone. "Keep moving," Ethan urged sharply. Urgency propelled us forward, the weight of what lay behind pressing heavily on our hearts even while we sprinted towards some semblance of safety ahead where sunlight would eventually return again someday. It wasn't until we reached an alleyway shielded from prying eyes that we slowed down enough for breaths steeped thickly in fear mingled with relief to fill our lungs anew once more. As silence settled around us within that shadowy refuge just beyond familiar streets marked by memories too painful yet too precious ever to forget, I finally understood something profound. Justice alone wouldn't suffice anymore, not when fighting darkness required courage forged amid unyielding love rising stronger than any individual spirit could ever muster alone. Today taught me resilience dwelled not only within one person but thrived alongside bonds created among shared suffering. It promised strength beyond measure no matter what awaited ahead. I stood beside my father in the sterile waiting room, an oppressive silence enveloping us like a suffocating shroud. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the stark white walls that felt more like a prison than a place of closure. Each tick of the clock echoed in my ears, a relentless reminder of the time slipping away as we waited for Andy Hopkins to meet his end. This was our morbid pilgrimage, a final confrontation with the monster who had haunted our family for far too long. As I glanced at my father, I could see the weight of years etched onto his face. Lines deepened around his eyes, shadows that spoke of battles fought both within and outside. I remembered how he used to sit at the daily grind, laughing over cups of coffee, oblivious to the darkness lurking just beyond the window. Now, that same man sat before me, consumed by the ghosts of his past, haunted by what had been left unresolved. "Do you think he'll say anything?" My voice broke through the heavy air, trembling with anticipation and dread. My father shrugged slightly, his expression unreadable. It's hard to know what goes on in a man's mind like his. He paused, then added quietly, "But maybe it's not about what he says, it's about finally confronting him." I nodded slowly as memories flooded back, moments spent with my father tracing lines in case files as we searched for answers. He'd taught me that facing evil was part of being human. It was in those moments that I learned to confront my own fears, even when they felt insurmountable. Then came the sound of footsteps echoing down the corridor. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as 2 guards escorted Andy toward us. The sight of him sent chills racing down my spine. There he was, clad in an orange jumpsuit, a twisted smile curling on his lips like a snake ready to strike. "I heard you were waiting for me," he sneered as they brought him closer. What a cozy little reunion. My heart raced as I caught sight of my father stepping forward with determination, a flicker of defiance igniting within him despite the years spent chasing this shadowy figure. "Enough games," he growled, his voice steady yet laced with an undercurrent of fury. "We're here to talk." I watched closely as Andy leaned back against the wall casually, feigning indifference while clearly reveling in our discomfort. "What do you want to know?" "You've already failed to catch me time and time again." "Your last meal?" my father asked suddenly, his voice low but filled with conviction. "What did you have?" "A cheeseburger, fries, a Coke, and a chocolate milkshake," Andy replied with a sinister grin spreading across his face like poison ivy creeping up a tree. The moment hung thick between us, everything shifted as that simple meal transformed into something grotesque, a symbol of normalcy juxtaposed against horror itself. I felt my breath hitch. It dawned on me how deeply entwined our lives were with this monster's existence. "That's funny," I found myself saying before I could stop myself. "You had it at the Daily Grind, the same place where we used to go as a family." My voice wavered slightly but gathered strength from an unyielding need for clarity. Andy's cruel smile widened further as he hissed back at me like an angry cat backed into a corner. "I was there at that very window watching you all laugh and enjoy your burgers while I prepared for my next act." The chilling revelation sent shockwaves through me, a sickening truth that twisted inside like barbed wire cutting deeper each second. The implications crashed over me like waves, how close my father had come without ever realizing it. How Andy had watched him from those shadows. I felt sickened by everything this man represented, the years lost because one man had been so clever in hiding among us. In that moment, I understood, this wasn't just about justice anymore, it was also about redemption for all those who suffered because we couldn't catch him sooner. "You thought you were untouchable," my father said quietly but firmly now, his gaze unwavering even in the face of this monster who thrived on fear and chaos. "But you're wrong." My heart raced as Andy's laughter filled the room, a sound devoid of humanity, ringing hollowly off sterile walls echoing despair rather than resolution. Each chuckle clawed at me from within, pain sprang anew amidst revelations too haunting to bear alone, the burden of loss spilling over into uncertainty and grief intertwined together forevermore. "How does it feel knowing you'll finally pay?" My father pressed onward determinedly while trying desperately not to give Andy any satisfaction from seeing our struggles exposed beneath fluorescent lights glaring above us, both like harsh judgments passed down through history itself, a constant reminder haunting every waking moment spent entangled within this web spun tight around innocent lives lost. A strange calm settled over me then, a shift within where anger transformed into something more profound. Acceptance mingled tightly alongside sorrow, intertwined together indefinitely until they became inseparable partners marching forward hand in hand toward healing if only we could muster enough courage amidst turmoil raging inside, threatening everything we cherished most dearly. "I carry your legacy now," I said softly yet firmly, feeling every word vibrate deep down within, even if spoken against immense odds stacked high against us still looming dangerously close nearby, even when hope flickered dimly ahead somewhere just beyond sight, waiting patiently, always ready despite darkness closing fast behind, leaving only echoes trailing softly away behind them. At that moment, standing shoulder to shoulder beside my father, we understood what justice truly meant. Not just punishment meted out upon criminals lurking amongst shadows, but rather safeguarding futures bright enough, illuminating paths leading onward toward healing, born out through love shared among families torn apart, fighting endlessly, reclaiming pieces once lost forevermore. And so here we remained, father and son united, facing monsters born from nightmares shared, but also determined, never again allowing them control over lives meant lived fully without chains binding us forever captive. See. We would keep fighting, for ourselves and for those left behind, because true legacy resided not solely within names etched upon headstones but lived vividly through actions taken amid darkness, illuminating brighter days ahead.